Our last of the 5 theories that I want to address is enactivism. Uh, Enactivism is very, very different from the other 4 theories. The other 4 theories are all old theories, like 50, 70 years plus, let's say, right? In one form or another. Right? Adverbialism is the most recent, I think, rising up around the 1930s, 1940s, maybe as late as the 1960s. I don't know. My history on that one's not particularly good. So they've got at least half a century behind them. Enactivism's far more recent, closer to 30 years at most, and that's in its earliest forms. Now, what separates out enactivism from the other theories of perception and knowledge, perceptual knowledge, is the model, really, the primary model, which sensory modality it's really rooted in for describing and understanding the rest of the senses. So the previous 4 senses all really are kind of rooted in the sensory modality of sight, right? You have an object, you have the sense, and you have knowledge, right? And experiences bound up in all that. But it's a very, all of them describe the knowledge as sort of very removed and remote. The experience is also something that's, the experience might be involved, but it's with remote objects, right? You'll notice the examples I use pretty much consistently involved color and sight in the previous 4, right? Because because those theories all pose perceptual knowledge as something factual and removed from our engagement with the world, even if they involve representation the way that uh, the intentionalist and adverbialist theories do. Enactivism is different because the primary form of the primary sensory modality that it connects up with is touch, right? And touch is different from sight because the objects of sight, well, they can be quite distant. There's literal distance between you and the objects that you that you see, right? But when it comes to touch, touch requires physical engagement with the world, right? It's a matter of actually involving yourself with the world. So the knowledge that we gain through touch is knowledge that is active participant, involves being active, it's engaged, and it sets things up, right? How you engage with something affects how you know it. That's one of the central ideas behind enactivism. So enactivism, while it can separate out the distinction between the 2 levels, right? Can separate the 2 levels, right? The character of perceptual experience from the character of perceptual knowledge. It doesn't need to, or it's not as necessary to do so as it is for the other 4 theories, because uh, since we're talking about a sense, since the primary understanding of uh, perception comes through a sense that's very actively engaged with enactivism, right? In the case of enactivism, what we have is an understanding of an understanding of perception that is at once experiential and knowledgeable. In fact, enactivism argues that some knowledge can only come from engaging with certain types of experiences. Think of this ball that I've been playing with this whole time, right? I mean, if you were never encultured for me, playing catch growing up, if I threw this ball at you, right, what would your reaction be? Dodge the object, right? Because even if you've never played catch, you have you have had things thrown at you or come flying at you, and the instinctual reaction is to move out of the way. But in playing catch, if I throw a ball at you, you're right, you're going to try and catch it. I don't even have to explain it to you, right? That's an engagement that we've grown up with, right? That's a way of enacting, playing with it, playing with our surroundings that we've grown up with. Same thing with this, right? This is a puzzle called the Gordian knot, right? And it's a brain teaser, and the whole thing is a matter of how you engage with it. It's all built upon engaging. It's a puzzle that requires, right? Puzzles in particular require engagement, right? Uh, so the knowledge of how to solve this puzzle doesn't come just from watching me, right? Or it can, but like the truly skillful ability to deconstruct the puzzle would have to come from engaging with the puzzle again and again. You can watch a tutorial and know how to do it intellectually, but until you manage it again and again, such that you don't even really have to focus on it, then you haven't really acquired like real knowledge of how to do so, how to solve the puzzle, right? So perception can be at once a bit more intellectual, and this allows perceptual knowledge to also be remote or ingrained. Think of an athlete, or think of an athlete. Like, how many hours do they have to drill in order to maintain form? Like basketball players have to drill to maintain form when us shooting a free throw, right? Or to work out jump shots and the like, right? How many hours of climbing does one have to do in order to just know what the next move is on site, right? The more you engage in particular activities, um, or with your surroundings in particular ways, the more you tend to represent to yourself your surroundings in particular ways, right? Uh, and that's how it works, right? It's an involved form of knowledge rather than a remote form of it. Uh, so for enactivism, perceptual experience or perceptual knowledge stems from perceptual experience rather than being something that is uh, separate from it, right? Or separable from it. The two are intrinsically bound together in a way that they aren't in those more older, more visually based models.